is a beautiful 75-degree day in Southern California. The crowd filing into the Forum in Inglewood.
Inside the Forum at the corner of Manchester and Prairie.
Whether you're kicked back in the lounge or grinding in the film room, the block is always hot for the Lakers.
The Los Angeles Lakers are the world champions of basketball.
It's the Great Western Forum.
Oh, chased down by James. Blocked by LeBron.
The Magic, he pivots, a 360 turn. He's around one, he's around two. Magic to Green underneath.
On the ball to Shaq, screen.
A windmill. They're going crazy at the Fabulous Forum.
Hosted by Anthony Irwin, Pete Zayas, and Jovan Buha.
It's showtime.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, into the Great Western Forum. I'm Anthony Irwin, your host, joined as always on this fine Monday evening. The Lakers play Tuesday evening. That's why it's on the mind. By Jovan Buha of the Buha's Block, and Pete Zayas of the Laker Film Room Podcast. I am in the middle of a stroke apparently and forgot how to speak. So, Jovan, how are you doing, bud?
I'm doing well, man. I'm in the playoff grind. I've already podcasted today, done TV today. I'm just in full-on playoff mode, ready to dive into game one and then preview game two.
Pete, this is my favorite time of year because it's like we all have to spend as much time on the air as we possibly can because this is like when all of the air eyeballs are on us. So it's just like maximize this to the best of our abilities. How are you holding up during this time?
I'm loving it. It's been, really diving into the film. That's what I do, and so Jovan, I know you had a rewatch as well, and so excited to talk about that a little bit later, but this is right in my element, like zeroing in on one team and like, okay, they did this in game one and then we're going to play them again. And what does that look like? Like that's part of what I love about series basketball. And so between that and then just having stakes to basketball games, it was such a fun weekend watching all of the games. We got games going on right now that got in the background, that it's just super cool to, again, I love series basketball. I love playoff basketball. So I'm excited. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I would normally agree with you that this is that time where you're like trying to figure out what the adjustment might be, what might the Rockets have up their sleeve, all of that stuff. But normally with Ime Udoka, it's just like, play harder, and it's just,
he uses different words than that, but yeah.
Yeah. Reed Shepherd, anyway.
Even going at the refs, I mean, I was surprised you didn't pick up that second technical.
I was going to say, you can call refs that now, apparently, without
multiple times
getting kicked out.
Yeah.
I feel like JJ Redick is just standing there like, if I said any of those words, I'd be in the showers. But yeah, so today we have a few things that we have to hit on. Before we went live, we found out that, before we started recording, we found out that Victor Wembanyama is the unanimous Defensive Player of the Year award winner. I would agree with it. I don't know if I would necessarily say that he needs to be unanimous. And I saw people predicting that he's going to be unanimous for like the next 9 years. And it's like, you guys don't realize how dumb voters can be. So we'll talk about that award, the awards in general. Luka not named a finalist for MVP. JJ Redick not named a finalist for Coach of the Year. I think those were the two opportunities that the Lakers kind of had at those kinds of honors. So we'll talk about all of that stuff. Pete, I know you've been paying very close attention to that, so I'll make sure to get out of your way in that segment. And then for the second part of the show here, we've got to talk about those adjustments that we think that the Rockets might be getting ready to make for game two. We found out that Kevin Durant is a game time decision for game two. He was only able to participate in about half of the practice, according to Ime Udoka. That is obviously a pretty important thing to keep an eye on as well. So we'll talk about the second part of that series. And then if there's any time there towards the end of the show, we'll talk about how game one's win impacts our outlook on the playoffs as a whole. And for me personally, I think it really did impact that stuff. All right, so we will go ahead and start with the news that dropped over the course of the week that Luka Doncic was not a Final Three nominee for MVP, and that JJ Redick was not a finalist for Coach of the Year. We did get word earlier last week that Luka was eligible because he and the Players Association won their appeal for him to be made eligible for it. The reason that I bring that up, Pete, is because one of the stories that has been trending over the course of the day has been Bill Simmons just brazenly admitting that he ignored the rules on this thing and changed his vote based on what he saw from the play-in games, something they were explicitly told not to do. Voters were told not to do. And this has been my problem with these subjective approaches in the first place. And it's why I think the Lakers often find themselves on the outside looking in. I'm sure you saw Bill Simmons's rant about it. It's funny that he decided to change his vote from Jaime Jaquez of the Miami Heat, a Heat team that has historic battles against the Celtics, but did not change his Rookie of the Year vote from Con Knipple, who appeared on his show.
And in his car, apparently.
Right. So, Pete, what I'm like I said, I'm going to get out of the way here on this one. The number one question I have on this stuff is like, and the reason that I bring up the eligibility thing as well is because if Bill Simmons is ignoring and other voters potentially is ignoring the rules of all of this stuff, who's to say that they didn't have their minds made up when Luka was declared eligible for these awards in the first place, and he never had a chance at becoming a finalist here?
I mean, I think that's absolutely what's happened many times over the years, and it's one of the reasons that I don't really care about this. I tracked it this year out of curiosity. Just like it seems odd how infrequently the Lakers have like top 3 finishes in these type of awards. But yeah, of course, stuff like that happens all of the time. And of course, they're going to be like, most of them are making their minds up super early on. Like one thing that's changed with the MVP race and the talk about it over the years is it starts way earlier. For a lot of people, this is super high up on the things that I want to talk about all freaking year long is who the MVP is. And this is just human nature is once you settled in on somebody, something big time's going to happen to move you off of them, and vice versa, right? If you're like, I don't really like Luka Doncic, like, doesn't matter that he had the March that he had or anything like that. Now, that said, with that one, we'd be remiss not to point out that all 3 of the guys that did get nominated top 3 are super deserving, and this was unbelievable top 4. Yeah. Like, there was somebody that was going to be 4th. I almost was certain it was going to be Luka. I'm sure you guys thought it was going to be that too, but like whomever it was, like I can't jump up and down too much about it. The stuff with Simmons and this, just the voting and like I could go on for ages about why I stopped giving a crap about that a long time ago. But again, that's kind of where I come from. Is it's like the Jovan. I've got issues with the voters and some of the way that things can be done, but with the top 3 in the MVP race, like this has been a historic MVP race. So I don't know. I understand it.
Go ahead, Jovan. No, I was just going to ask that, like, the one that I think I'm scratching my head over the most is actually the JJ Redick claim to this one. Mm-hmm. Not being a finalist here, despite missing LeBron over the first like quarter to third of the season, and then again later in the year, not having Austin for significant chunks of the season, not having Luka for 20 some odd games of the season too, yet the Lakers still finishing with home court advantage. And look, I'm not saying that Mitch Johnson wasn't deserving of becoming a finalist, but it's kind of tough for me to say that like he had a tough lift, given that he has the MVP unanimous or potential MVP unanimous defensive player of the year and potentially the 6th man of the year on his roster, as well as a bevy of high lottery picks who all came into their own this season. I don't know. It's just the way that given everything that JJ Redick has done, I just think that if a second-year coach had won 100 games over his first couple of seasons, I feel like it'd be talked about a little differently than it has been to this point of his career. Jovan, what did you think of JJ not being included in this? We should also point out, we don't know how close he came to being a finalist. That's the case with both him and Luka.
I'll echo what Pete said and say I'm not surprised. I did not expect the Laker to be a finalist in any category. I think to the Luka point quickly, like what sealed it for me was Luka had the month that he had, and then the ESPN MVP straw poll came out, and he still was a distant fourth. He wasn't even like a close fourth. He was a distant fourth. And it was like, if Luka could win his second player of the month and have the month that he just had, and people are still viewing him. And I do think there is like, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole of like anti-Laker, anti-Luka bias, whatever. Like I think we can all acknowledge there's like some of that to a degree. But if you just think about the MVP discourse throughout the course of the season, like Luka was the only one of those four guys that ever had these like stretches of a week or two of just every national show piling on him and critiquing. Like, think about what was the most negative thing said about Jokic all season, or what was the most negative thing said about SGA all season. With Wemby, it was maybe right after he came out and said he wanted to win MVP, and then some people thought it was a little arrogant or like rubbed some people the wrong way. But these are it was almost nothing but like entirely positive coverage. Luka's the guy who he complains to the refs, he's overweight, this and that, and he takes bad shots. He's a ball hog. Like it just, I think I've made this point several times throughout the season. Like, I think he's been stamped with certain things that it's going to take some time for him to just kind of get rid of that. And I think it traces back to probably the 2024 finals, where there was a magnifying glass on him, and there were some things said during that final series about him that I think kind of put a certain perception on him. Then you follow that up with him getting traded and some of the things that came out from the Dallas side of like why they traded him. And it feels like there's just been some of these narratives around him that have just been perpetuated. And like, look, he's not above criticism. I think there are certainly some things to criticize him for, but it just feels like with Luka, it's been more through like a deficit model in terms of how you evaluate him versus the other guys. It's like celebrating their greatness and not as much about like what they can't do or what they don't do. So I think that has kind of just been out there with Luka all season. And I think for a lot of people, just think about like the average voter that's not necessarily tapped into the Lakers that much. They're just seeing these conversations happening or hearing these things. And if all you hear all season is Luka doesn't get back on defense, Luka complains to the refs, Luka is overweight, Luka this and that, it's like, well, that's going to seep into your subconscious, and you're just going to be like, well, this guy's not on the Jokic level or the SGA level or the Wemby level, whatever. So that's my Luka spiel. With JJ, I think Coach of the Year has basically become look at the preseason over-unders and then look at the final standings, and that gap there is the Coach of the Year order. Because, if you look at Joe Mazzulla, like Boston was projected to be a play-in team in the East. They end up being the 2 seed. You look at San Antonio, I think their over-under was like 42. They end up winning 62, second best record in the NBA. It's like, okay, they won 20 more games than their over-under. There you go. And then Detroit, similarly, I don't remember exactly where their over-under was, but they were kind of pegged as like a 4 to 6 seed in the East. They end up being the number 1 seed, won 60 games. And I don't think it's a coincidence either that all three of those teams had a better record than the Lakers. And it kind of just is like, okay, who are the best? Like, you kind of cross the Venn diagram with best teams that also overachieved, and like those are the 3 coaches of the year. Now, to be clear, I think this is similar to MVP, where JB Bickerstaff, I thought, coached his ass off this season, and that team surviving without Cade, like we saw in game 1 against Orlando, like Cade is very important to their operation, and not having him and being able to funnel things more through Jalen Duren and Dennis Jenkins, like, he did a great job. Joe Mazzulla not having Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown having the season that he had. I know you guys don't want to hear that, but Boston had a really impressive season. And like, I do think people have discounted the Spurs, I do think there's something to like a little bit of revisionist history of how good the Spurs are supposed to be. Like most people had the Spurs below. I think the consensus was the Lakers were better than the Spurs, just to kind of put those two guys, two teams head to head. And like the Spurs had a great season. And I think we thought maybe they could do this next season or maybe 2 years from now, but they arrived ahead of schedule. So I do think from an expectation standpoint, the Lakers, you look at it, I think their over-under was around 44, 45, depending on the place. Maybe that's a little low, but somewhere around there. They won 53, so they don't overachieve quite to the same degree maybe as some of these other teams, and I think it's that simple. It's like they didn't but to Anthony's point, like you factor in the injuries and who they didn't have, and that's where that argument starts to lose some of its credence because it's like, okay, well, they might not have overachieved that much relative to expectations, but you also did not expect all these guys to be injured throughout the course of the season. So it's tough. I think JJ for sure, top 5 for me. You could argue in the top 3, but I was not surprised that he didn't make it.
That's kind of the point that I've been making in conversations I've had either on or off of the air about all these awards. The NBA is always going to have incredible talent, relatively speaking, right? Like this season was an astronomical MVP pursuit, right? With the performances that we saw, but in any given year, that there's always going to be a few great performances over the course of a season that you can choose from, right? You could like the year that I've spent a lot of time thinking about most is this season is the MVP that Steve Nash won when Kobe averaged 35 points a game and was a first team all defensive player, I think in that same season. And, it's one of those things where it's like Nash totally, I would never say that Nash wasn't deserving of the MVP that he won. But I would also say that like, given the lift that Kobe had there, and the reason I've been thinking about it so much is because of the season that Luka had here, where it's like, given the lift that Luka had, and this is a consensus talking point going into the season, the Lakers roster, I was told, sucked. I said it plenty on the show. Like
the players who were good were hurt half the time.
Yeah, and so it's like the math doesn't necessarily math up to me, in the conversations that I've been hearing where it's like, yeah, Luka couldn't have been that valuable. He had LeBron James. It's like, okay, but we've been calling LeBron old all year, and Luka, or the Lakers. Of course, JJ Redick has won 100 games over the course of his 2 seasons, 100 plus games over his first 2 seasons. It's like, okay, but he has dealt with more nonsense than any other coach.
Why'd you pick the under?
Stretch, right? Well, that and while Jovan was talking, and he was saying that like the Lakers their over under was set higher than some of these other teams here. And it's like, okay, their over under was set higher, but the consensus was that they were going to come under that over under. It felt like in listening to national pods going into the season. So. Look, I'm not going to bemoan the point. The Lakers are playing exciting basketball, and this is kind of what Lakers fans have been having to do over the course of their time rooting for this team. It's like, you know what? Screw it. They're not going to win these awards unless their guy makes an absolutely overwhelming, cannot not talk about it case for an award. They are not going to win it. So let's just focus on the things that are right in front of us. And right in front of us right now is a real opportunity, Jovan, I think, to win this series. Like I don't know that I would favor them to win this series quite yet still. It's especially like I don't know about Kevin Durant's timeline and Houston's ability to rebound the basketball the way that they did and LA turning the ball over as much as they did in game 1. I don't know that they can rely on 90th percentile shooting that they got in that first game. However, their odds at winning the series, I feel like, went up significantly, is the very least that we could say about this matchup moving forward.
Yeah, we didn't end up doing the preview pod, but we're doing the post game 1 pod. My series prediction was Rockets in
We
six.
can
And
blame
that
my
was
kids
only
for that. They brought home some kind of bug that just absolutely took me out.
So I predicted. I'm glad you're feeling better. I predicted Rockets in six, and it was solely because of just who the Lakers are missing, right? And it's a lot of points. And even looking at like the season series, I went back and rewatched all three games, and it was just Luka and Austin were so central to a lot of what the Lakers did offensively in that series. And it was like, I just felt like the Lakers were at such a deficit. But after game one and like actually because part of it for me was that we had not, in my opinion, really seen this group against a real basketball team. So like you look at the last 5 games of the season, they play Dallas and Utah, 2 tanking teams. They play Phoenix and Golden State without half of their starters. And then the OKC game, LeBron doesn't play in, so we don't get to see what like the full strength version of this group was. So to me, there was like a little bit of a crapshoot element of we've seen some things, and like there's been some things like Luke Kennard, what was a bright spot. That Dallas game has the triple double, and he steps up as a playmaker and a passer, and Marcus returns and looks pretty good coming off of his return. LeBron is playing great basketball. Like there were some things that I was encouraged by to close the season, but I was just like, what does this look like against a real basketball team? What does this look like against a certain amount of defense and athleticism? And I was really going to weigh what that looked like in game one. And I came away so impressed with game one that I actually changed my prediction after game one to Lakers in 7 now. I'm drinking the purple Kool-Aid. And I think that the big thing for me was it felt like the Lakers were playing chess and the Rockets were playing checkers. And the thing that stood out from everything that was said was that Ime Udoka after the game says that the Rockets expected Kevin Durant to be out, that just the media didn't know that. They didn't let us know that. That's why they listed him as questionable. And the fact that that was their game plan with 2 days to prepare for no Kevin Durant, it was like, it just blew my mind. I was like, how is this thing? Like they look like they look like they were planning for Kevin Durant, and then 2 hours before the game, they get the news, no Kevin Durant, and now they're scrambling and like trying to figure things out. It was like, no, they had 2 days to prepare for this, and this was the approach. So I just walked away. I'm like, I don't care how many players the Lakers are without. Like, if they have such a tactical advantage between JJ and LeBron and Marcus, and it just, I'm like, I mean, again, 7-game series is still a long series, and I think Houston we'll talk about some adjustments and there'll be some things they do better. But I just left that first game being like, so many things went right for Houston. They get 21 offensive rebounds. Lakers turn the ball over 20 times. They take 27 more shots, and they took the same amount of free throws. So it wasn't like the Lakers had 40 free throws and the Rockets had 15, and it was this like giant disparity. No, same amount of free throws. They get 27 more scoring chances, and the game was like never really in doubt. It was the Lakers basically took the game by its horns in the beginning of the first quarter, are winning. They led for 93% of the game. And it just like, it never really felt like Houston figured out anything that worked on like either side of the ball outside of a little bit of ball pressure forcing the Lakers into turnovers, but then the Lakers trimmed down on that, right, in some of the transition stuff. But I just left that game being like, if this is the game plan and the approach from the Houston side, and that does not dramatically change going into game 2, I mean, the Lakers at 7 might be too pessimistic. It might even be shorter than that.
Man, I picked 7 before the series. And I'm with you, Jovan. I think we might be talking about fewer games going here, which would be absolutely critical here for the Lakers if they could somehow make that happen and LeBron gets a little bit of extra rest.
The thing I've been banging the table about for the last month, that, man, if people looked at Houston the way that they looked at the Lakers and just the deficit model that we were talking about earlier, Houston is not good. I've been arguing we've got a real good chance in this series and it's mostly because of them not being good. Now, we might be a little less not good, a little more not good, a little worse than them, right?
Double and triple negatives, yeah.
We might be a little worse than them. I'm not saying we're going to win the series, but Houston is not good. And any of the teams, of the top teams, in my opinion, of the other 5 teams that made it above the play-in line in the West, if they had their dudes and weren't shorthanded, any one of those teams would have smacked them. They've got holes on the defensive end. They can't dribble the ball. Half their wings can't like do stuff mid-play. It can't hit a pull-up jumper. Can't like drive and kick to an open guy. Like from a skill set standpoint, like to me, they were one of my two really fascinating teams at the beginning of the year with them and Dallas because they just went so big. And like picture those 21 offensive rebounds, and then add Steven Adams to that. And their whole theory of victory was just, we're going to smash you in the face just over and over again. And hell, it might've worked had they kept Steven Adams, but without him, they're really good on the boards and they're strong and they're physical, but they're not like, we can't do anything about this. And so that is part of why I looked at the odds to start the series. And I was like, I don't think we should be favored, but this, what was it, like 9-1 type of underdog or something? It was
wild.
It was wild. And it's like, y'all, like, I'm not even making commentary on the Lakers. It's like, have y'all watched Houston? They're not good. Not in like high level playoff team type of good.
Yeah.
It reminded me, Ime's series so far has reminded me of, this. I'll keep this story short, but I coached when I graduated. I came out of high school and I graduated. And my first couple of years in college, I coached like a JV basketball team, right? And we ran the triangle. We called it fist. And one of the teams that we played against had scouted us. So every time I called fist, they would go zone. And then every time, and then I had a zone offense is a pretty, simple stuff. We would just call it pig. And it was basically just like this high post, high low offense that we would run because we had two tall guys. And so this guy shows up for the second time that we play them in league play, and he thinks he has us completely figured out. And he goes, I call fist, and he goes, zone. And so they would do that. And I was like, okay, how can I get around this in the simplest way with these like sophomores and juniors and freshmen, right? So I say, just reverse it. If I call fist, we're running our zone offense, and if I call pig, we're running fist, and we started doing that, and this guy just lost his mind. He had no idea what to. He's screaming at his guys. He's getting super duper angry. He's like, "How can you guys not figure this out? They just reversed their play." And I'm just listening, and like I'm watching Ime on the sideline. Where's that play where Reed Shepherd throws the ball out of bounds, right? He tries to throw that skip pass and it goes out over the corner shooter. And Ime like looks at his coach. He's like, I can't believe I have to play this guy. Like you could basically make out what he's saying there. And it's just like, I don't know how he has gotten to this point with this team. And this stuff hadn't been pointed out. And Pete, I love the point that you make about like how if the Lakers were dealing with all of the stuff that Houston had dealt with over the course of the year. Where like, imagine if LeBron James, you had made this point on our show on the Hook a little while back. Imagine if LeBron was in group chats saying the things about Rui Hachimura that like
it'd still be a national storyline. It would still be brought up every week. Yeah.
And he brought up, he was like, problem is your next best player can't shoot or play defense. He's talking about Şengün there. It's like he's just hitting up everybody with that. Yeah, like, come on.
It's just blown me away.
It's a lot of Josh Okogie going on. There's a little bit too much Josh Okogie if I'm Houston. Like I know that Tari Eason had this like 3-month stretch where he shot under 30% on threes, so I understand why they're leaning toward Okogie. But we saw like Eason went 7 for 7, 2 for 2 on threes. I'm like, that's a very like low hanging fruit adjustment of if you kind of flip their minutes and their role. I think Tari Eason should be in there, but yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of things with the Houston side that I just don't understand.
Yeah, well, if people don't look at them with the same skepticism, right? Like if they just look, like if the Lakers had the same season and the same circumstances with the same players, we'd be getting fried, even going into the playoffs, and rightfully so.
Imagine how I would have handled it if the Lakers wouldn't have, like when they lost Steven Adams and they didn't have Brent Van Vliet and their front office didn't do anything at all to address either of those losses. Could you imagine how I would have handled that on my show?
You're still mad about Drew Timme.
I am. I'm going to go down to my grave. Like, but no, I do want to talk though about those adjustments though, because I do think that like, I joke about Ime Udoka, but there are things that I think that can be done here. One of the things that I'm going to be kind of looking for is because Okogie spent a lot of time guarding LeBron, and I have found I think of their like it's this weird roster makeup thing that Houston has, Jovan. I'm sure you've noticed it too. That like they are all these crazy athletic longer wing athletes, right? But they don't have a ton of like shifty lateral movers defensively. And I think that's why before the series, I was kind of looking for Luke Kennard to have a pretty big. Now, I didn't think he would go 27 points and, 5 of 5 from 3-point range, but Okogie feels like the only guy that they have who can realistically kind of sort of stay in front of Kennard and stay attached. Because even Amen Thompson, he was gassed also by the end of the game too. But defensively, I feel like they have to pull Okogie off of LeBron and see what they can do as far as limiting Kennard's impact on the game. Is there anything that you're looking for in game 2 here?
I think first and foremost, Kevin Durant, like what happens with KD, does he play, does he not? I think it has a massive ripple effect on both sides of the ball, because I think one of the things that stood out to me from the season series, especially those 2 games in Houston, is Ime doesn't really trust Clint Capella. And so you look at that first game in Houston, and he progressively got played off of the floor in that second half, and they closed that game small, which allowed DA to come back in, get the offensive rebounds and the putbacks. Then that second game with Şengün back, by the second half, they basically just went Şengün and small ball, or their version of small ball, which is Jabari and KD at the 4-5 down the stretch of the second half. So I think this is going to morph once KD is back into Şengün or small ball with Jabari and KD. That's going to be the way that they go. Maybe there's a little bit of Clint Capella tied to the Jackson Hayes minutes, because maybe he can kind of survive in that. But if it's Ayton or even like the LeBron minutes, I think Capella probably should not be out there from the Houston side. So I think that's something that's a quick rotation change that they can make once KD is back. It does slot everybody a little bit more appropriately, where again, now you don't have to rely on a Josh Okogie or a Jayshawn Tate. Like, some of these guys should not be playing. People make that point for some of the Lakers guys, but we could also make the same point for some of the Houston guys. So I think that's a big thing where, their offense just looked entirely aimless, I guess would be the word I would come up with. I don't really know what they were trying to do. And if you look at the Lakers side, they were targeting Reed Shepherd, Alperen Şengün, or Clint Capella on basically every single possession. It was one of those 3 guys, bring them into the action. And with Capella, they had the 3 straight possessions where it's the Luke hook, Jake had a drive, and then they had the lob to DA. And then, Reed, it's attacking him in the post and then drawing the help over. Now you have some weak side actions with Şengün. You're testing his footwork in the pick and roll. Like, the Lakers had 3 clear entry points into Houston's defense. On the Lakers side, or the Houston offensive side, they had the one play early in the game where Amen Thompson gets Luke Kennard at one-on-one. They space out. He takes Luke off the dribble, goes to the left side, and glides to the rim and scores. Then they do not attack Luke Kennard for like the rest of the game. I can't remember a single possession where they really went at Luke Kennard. Lakers just hit him on Josh Okogie, and they did not have Okogie come in as a screener. And like, I think that's another thing where whoever Luke Kennard is on, that's the guy you're not targeting Marcus, you're not targeting Rui, you're not targeting LeBron. Luke is the obvious guy that you would go after. And we had seen, like, kind of down the stretch of the season, smarter teams and better teams had started to target Kennard. And right before the injuries, like, he hadn't been playing as much as he had earlier in the season. And I think that's a low-hanging fruit thing of, like, wherever Luke Kennard is, especially with his shooting and how much he's moving offensively, you need to tire him out. You need to get him in foul trouble. You need to target him. So I think that's an obvious thing from the Houston side that I was shocked they did not do, with how much the Lakers switch, try to get Şengün in the post against Luke Kennard and get the Lakers to double and rotate out of that, or try to get Amen Thompson ISO'd against him or whatever. But I think from the Houston side, KD is obviously the big thing that's going to swing this series on both sides of the ball. But in the meantime, I think they could try to do a better job of attacking Luke, putting him in every action defensively, and then defensively, I don't know. I don't have a great solve for that one.
Can they do it? Like, I think the adjustments are there to be made. I think that they present other issues though, Pete. If they attack Kennard, like, I think sometimes one of the things that, like, smarter coaches will sometimes do is they'll throw a switch target, or somebody that a weak point in the defense out there at some other players so that the other team takes the bait and the ball is no longer in so-and-so player's hand, right? And I feel like you can kind of use Kennard in some of those same ways too here. You were, of the three of us, more confident about the Lakers' chances going into this thing. Have no reason for that confidence to sway here. So where do you stand on how the rest of the series plays out?
Well, I'd actually love to zero in on that specific of, say, they want to target Kennard and what that might look like and how the Lakers might counter that, because this speaks to part of the reason why I'm confident in that. I think the Lakers have natural answers for a lot of the stuff that they might want to do. And so the first question I have in that idea of targeting Kennard more is, okay, well, with who? And so they wanted to initiate a lot of their offense through Şengün. But the problem is you could run some inverted ball screens, but if Kennard is on Okogie, there are a couple of things that can happen off of that. One, you can just go under the screen and say, if Şengün's going to be hitting pull-up threes off of ball screens against us, we'll live with that. Like, that's a shot you're totally fine with. And so the inverted ball screens work less with him than with somebody that can actually pull up and hit the three in the first place. Secondly, is that if you trap that, then you put Okogie in the natural 4-on-3, which is another circumstance where the Lakers are like, Josh Okogie playmaking in a 4-on-3. We can zone up off of that. Like, we can live with that sort of thing. And so I think that's part of the rationale why. I do think there's some tactical things that they can do, and Reed Shepherd is kind of at the center of some of the two-man action in those circumstances where if you wanted to target, say, Şengün against Kennard in the post, it would require enough ball handling and perimeter threat offensively to like be a threat themselves and then make the post entry, meaning that if you have, say, Josh Okogie do that, it's like, well, I don't care. You go ahead and shoot that. I'm going to back off you and take you. Like, let's help Luke. And they're going to have to help Luke out anyway. And so, yeah, if they can do that. But the thing that I saw on tape that I thought was most promising is just sort of a continuation of their smash mouth basketball, of that they had some high-low passes at the end of that game that, as they were trying to kind of desperately get back into it, where Şengün had the ball at the nail, like right at the free throw line, but then there was another player that had gone from the dunker spot or the corner and moved all the way in and cut to the lane line. And it's like very phone booth basketball. And the Lakers are really weak on that second level, that like 3 to 8 feet type of range, just in terms of they don't have a lot of bodies there in a lot of circumstances. They're getting really washed out. And so I think that you might see Houston condense their offense a bit. KD, again, is obviously the biggest swing factor overall offensively, but Jovan, they're going to have to get something out of the Şengün touches. Even if KD plays, for them to win the series, they've got to have like quality, we run stuff through Şengün type of offense. And I think Ayton did a really good job on him one-on-one that sort of prevented some of the, oh crap, we need to send a second guy in the first place.
Ayton straight up outplayed Şengün.
Yeah.
And, one of the points that I've been making on my show over the last couple of days, because Lakers fans are always going to be kind of interested about the offseason ahead or whatever, but this has really kind of told me, look at what the Lakers are when Ayton is at his best. How can I get a center in here who can be at that level more frequently? But like, as far as this series goes with the Ayton and Şengün matchup and what the Lakers can do to limit him, I like they really went at Capella, as you guys have talked about, really went at Shepherd, but Şengün to me is like, if they're able to put even a little bit of doubt in Udoka's head about those Şengün matchups and those minutes and what he can do defensively, that's the backbreaker. That's Bane putting Batman over his knee. Yeah, Pete, do you think do you think that's even a possibility here with him? Because he was so clearly frustrated.
He is, and the Lakers did plenty of that targeting. Like, a big part of Kennard's game one was the degree that they targeted Şengün and the level that they can run their handoff series, that they can run the flare screen action, the side to side stuff that the Lakers run in their offense is predicated in part because Şengün can't move his feet and get out to the perimeter in the first place. I think Jovan is spot on that once KD gets back along with the offensive benefit that's obvious, just being able to go to that small ball look with KD at the 4 and Smith at the 5, like it's the main thing that they go to that can take away sort of the natural stuff that was working for the Lakers in game 1, but none of it works without KD.
Let's say KD comes back either in game 2 or in game 3, and in one of those 2 games, and then they would have him for the remainder of the series. The one thing that has been kind of sticking in my head is like the kinds of offensive rebounds that the Lakers gave up. There were some that they can clean up, but they are still at an incredible athletic deficit against this team. And the ball handling stuff, right? Like they aren't going to just magically get a point guard here who can handle Houston's ball pressure. If KD does come back, I don't think this is like a slam dunk series win here for the Lakers.
God, not at all.
He terrifies me in the amount of margin for error that the Lakers would be, or he eats up basically there. So Jovan, if they get KD back, what's your series outlook here moving forward?
I mean, I'm expecting them to get KD back. I think if he doesn't play in game 2, he will be back in game 3, and that would be a week and a half off, which for a bone bruise, that's a good amount of time.
Unless you're
I think unless you're a Laker, like because their bone bruises seem to last
the worst bone bruises ever. Yeah,
but I think the follow-up question for me then is like, what shape is he in? Because one thing that Ime Udoka said pregame about the injury that I feel like has kind of flown under the radar when people have talked about it is a lot of people talk about pain tolerance, right? And you hear bone bruise and it's like, can you get an injection or something or play with something to just basically numb it and not really feel it during the course of the game, but you can play through it, just gut it out. But Ime said that it wasn't just a pain tolerance thing, and that if it was a matter of pain tolerance, he would have played through it. It was actually the range of motion that was compromised with KD and the inability to move the knee the way that they needed him
he
to
wasn't
move his
moving
knee.
well before
he was
game
not
1.
moving well in pregame warm-up. So
yeah,
I think that is still an open-ended question of what physical form will KD be in. Like, of course, I would still rather have a physically compromised KD than Jayshawn Tate or Aaron Holiday or Josh Okogie in my rotation if I'm Houston. But if he's not like 90% at least, then that does, I like, again, it's he could be a stationary shooter and have a certain amount of gravity and stuff, but it does like, it changes the dynamic on both sides of the ball. So I think we'll see a lot of the trapping and blitzing that we saw in those final 2 matchups in Houston. And I think one big thing will be, so I did a series preview, and my question for the Rockets is, could they capitalize with an advantage? Because the thing that really stood out to me on film out of those 2 Houston games was when they started trapping KD and they had these 4-on-3, 3-on-2, they're throwing the ball all over the place. I mean, we saw some of that in game 1. They're turning the ball over. They're airballing open threes. And it was like they did not know how to play with an advantage and capitalize on an advantage. And then you added in Şengün for the 3rd game. And when it was KD and Şengün out there together, you saw they started to, okay, it's the ping, find the cutter, find the shooter. The offense is humming at a certain level. But when it's one of the two, and you're doubling, that's when, again, they start to kind of spaz out and they don't really know what to do. So you saw that a little bit in game 1 where they had a couple of baseline doubles against Şengün. One of them, he retreats immediately and travels. Another one, he tries to hit the corner shooter and throws the ball out of bounds. So I think like throwing in those random doubles against Şengün when KD's off, and then also throwing the doubles against KD when Şengün is off, that's when like I don't really trust any of of the other four guys, if one of those two is not one of the other ones, to make the right decision. So I think you're going to see some of that. Obviously, I would expect Marcus to get the KD matchup, and they're going to do their best to keep him attached to him, and there will be some switching involved. And I think KD is probably the one best equipped to target Luke. So maybe it is a situation where you run in an empty corner, pick and roll, like similar to what the Lakers have done a little bit with LeBron and Marcus trying to target Reed on the block. You could kind of do the same thing against Luke. But if it's Josh Okogie in there, it's like you can, I mean, you're not going to go under against KD, but you are going to maybe not really care if Josh Okogie slips or rolls out of there. And like, I mean, he missed the wide open layup in transition on that 3-on-1 fast break. Like, he's just not really a factor. So if I'm Houston, I'm taking him out. I'm putting Tari Eason in. And then you have to make your decision there of if KD comes back, do you go with Eason or Shepherd as the fifth guy? And that's its own offense-defense thing there. But I just think Josh Okogie was put in a role where he's just such a non-factor offensively that it is like you're playing 4-on-5, even more so than like a Tari Eason or someone. Like Eason, I think, has an underrated off-the-dribble game. Like he can slice and slash through the paint and get to the rim. He did shoot the ball well for the first 3 months of the season before he just fell off a cliff with that. So he's just, to me, far more of an offensive factor and a better defender and bigger and a better rebounder. Like Josh Okogie, 0 offensive rebounds. He was not helping on that front. So I just think like they put this 6'4", really limited offensive player in this position of power that he probably shouldn't have been. So I think if you add in KD and some of the things you could do with inverted pick and rolls with him and Reed Shepherd or him and Şengün, and then also the target hunting a little bit with KD, and then you also reduce Josh Okogie's role, like that would be, to me, like a couple steps in the right direction for Houston.
So Ime Udoka is Darvin Ham. Got it. But Pete, I wanted to ask you about this one. It came up in the middle of the of game one.
Can't help yourself.
At one point, I've been doing this whole show with my hands in my pockets. But the in game one, the Lakers had a lineup out there of Bronny. This is in the first half. Bronny, LeBron. I think it was Jake, and was it Vando and Hayes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it was this like really athletic unit that was getting Houston to turn the ball over a little bit. And I kind of liked that like fight fire with fire stretch that they had out there. I don't know if I would want Bronny out there as part of it necessarily, just because, you know, I just don't think he's quite ready for this kind of a moment. But do you think that's something that the Lakers can maybe go to, is like leaning into as much athleticism they possibly have and just throwing this thing into hyperspeed?
That was definitely the most intriguing lineup of the night for me, was that group. And you could definitely see it was Redick going, we're going to go with the most athletic, motor forward group that we can go with right now. And I think that is one of my core beliefs, basketball wives. I've lived it several times of like, you run on a running team, you crash the glass on a team that likes to crash the glass. It's one of those idioms in basketball where like you can like, hey, I'm supposed to do that to you. Why are you doing that to me? That like, if you can do that to a team, that, you know, that's a great place to be able to do that. I agree with you that Bronny is just like, side tangent. I've been freaking cracking up all year at LeBron. It just kills him that like guys can't throw post entry passes all over the team. And I'm like, Bron, your own child can't even throw post entry passes. Like, and what's hilarious is like, this has happened a few times.
You kind of seem like, Bronny, you're embarrassing me. Throw the
right, but he can't react because it's like, because it's Bron and Bronny and like zillions of eyeballs are on them, right? And so, you know, LeBron gets pissed off at his teammates. If you play basketball, that's just part of
it happens.
Part of basketball, right? And so much of the stuff that we run is like an elbow touch or an extended touch where LeBron is supposed to catch it off of an entry pass from Marcus or one of the guards, but Bron's supposed to get the ball first without having to dribble it. So he's got it in triple threat position. Like half the team is just trash at making this pass, either there or into the low post. And so, sorry. Anyway, that one of those happened. Bronny had a turnover there. So I agree with you that Bronny's just sort of like a level below that. But if you're trying to create the overall effect of let's get an athletic five that can be defensive playmakers. We don't really think we've got a lineup here that can score anyway, because Luke's got to sit for a few minutes and rest. That, like, I see the vision. I also saw you cringing a bit, Jovan, at the prospect of that over those minutes. Well, but I definitely see the idea in the position that we're in.
I see the idea, and I also think it's a delicate balance where they're trying to play the starters a certain amount of minutes, and especially with the non-LeBron minutes, which I thought were a win. They were -2 in the 10 minutes LeBron was off. Like, that to me was the fact that Houston couldn't win those minutes by more was just, a continued indictment on this Houston team. But so I think because of that, they were trying to stagger Marcus and Luke from LeBron a little bit. And it's like, if we can find a breather here, I do think it's skewed a little bit too much in that direction, where, like, I guess LeBron is like the guard offensively in the backcourt with Bronny. You could argue that front court of Jake, Vando, Jackson is just the spacing collectively with those three. Now, I know there's an element of, like, this series is get it out the mud and you're in the trenches, and, like, I get that. I would have liked either Marcus instead of Bronny, or maybe Rui instead of one of the other front court guys, and just a little bit more of an offensive threat out there, because I think if we're looking at the top 9 in the rotation with penciling in Bronny as the 9th man, like, it is now LeBron with the 4 like lesser threats offensively, and there's a pretty big gap between, like, that guy right at the line and then the guys behind the line. So, like, I would have liked I don't know, maybe DA instead of Jackson, or Rui instead of one of the guys, or Marcus instead of Bronny, something like that, to just, like, with Marcus, we've seen some of those benchy groups with the bench groups with LeBron have success, and Marcus be a big part of that. DA has been a part of some of those groups as well. So I would just like to see, like, one more offensive threat out there, because then it does feel like now they won those minutes. I think they're a +3 in Bronny's shift, so they technically won them, but it was not. I don't know if that's something they want to necessarily rely on consistently. I would like to, in general, have, like, one of LeBron, Rui, or DA on the floor at all times in a front court context, right? But yeah, I mean, I get it to a degree, and with the current options, like, it's tough not to find yourself in some position where you're playing 4 of the lesser offensive threats together at some point.
Yeah. At the very least, it did tell me that's a look that I want the Lakers to be able to pull off next year. Like, that is is something that I think should be fairly high on the priority board. All right, last thing before we all get out of here, has game 1 how the way the playoffs have played out so far changed your outlook on what you guys think the Lakers are capable of? Let's say Luka and maybe get Austin, because I've still sensed a little bit less optimism on the Austin front than the Luka one. Let's say Luka is back either tail end of the series or definitely in round 2 if they make it that far. Pete, has this changed what you think the Lakers are capable of here moving forward in this year's playoffs?
No, not necessarily, because every round is it's a specific puzzle against the team that you're facing. And I happen to think the Rockets stink, and none of the teams that we will play in any of the future rounds will. So it doesn't really.
Well, we can. All right, let's address the elephant in the room. If the Lakers win, they're playing OKC. There's no we know the path, we know the bracket. So I guess the question is, like, do you think this changes how they would fare against OKC?
No, this has.
And I'll let you go first, Pete.
Let's beat this bum ass Rockets team and do what we can against OKC. I'm sorry, I'm talking too spicy, but they're not good. They're not good. That's why we have a chance.
I like spicy Pete.
But it doesn't really impact what I think about OKC. Aside from, like, the one thing is that seeing LeBron get to his own version of a superstar, like, it's different than it's ever looked with him. But man, there were several possessions where we ran good offense. Everybody cut hard, set good screens. The ball was moving crisply, but Houston defended it well. And I'll be damned if LeBron didn't just, like, dot a jumper in somebody's eyeball, like, right at the end of that with somebody right in his face. You know what I mean? Those type of superstar shots. So that was the one thing that can move me over the course of this series going forward, is it's like, if LeBron looks like a true blue superstar in whatever way that needs to look right now at his age, and at least Luka comes back, but even then, like, he's going to get no ramp up time. I don't know. My expectations on Luka and Austin are I don't expect either of them back in this series. I expect them to look rusty when they do come back, if and when they do. So my mind's just, Jovan, so much in a place of like, these are the guys we got. Let's beat a flawed Houston team and see what we can do.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be completely honest. I think if the Lakers were healthy, they would have been the 3 seed and they'd be playing Minnesota right now. So we're having a totally different conversation of now they're playing San Antonio in round 2. But let's just say like the Luka Austin injuries were like short term, and it was they're out the regular season, but they are able to ramp up throughout the course of the week. They're ready for game 1. They're both back. I mean, they would still be very heavy underdogs in that OKC series, and not. I mean, I think from a national perspective, yes, but even from like observing those matchups, like I was getting into it with someone in the comments, which I probably shouldn't be doing, and it was someone saying that they think the Lakers would beat the Thunder, and I'm like, did they run 5 functional offensive possessions with Luka and Austin on the floor in either of the 2 matchups in Oklahoma City? Because that would be news to me if they did, and both of those games were over in the first quarter, and it just. And neither one of them like I know Austin's taken a lot of flack, and I get he's in a contract year, and there's a lot of pressure on like, can he be a number 2 or even a number 3 on a championship level team? And I think there are obvious questions about that. But Luka did not play well either in either of the OKC games, and did not fare well against their ball pressure and their style of defense. So I think LeBron actually is maybe more the entry point into attacking OKC. And with this version of LeBron, the Lakers could shift the offense to playing more through him, and maybe that being more successful. But there was I don't know. You might have even said this on your pod, Pete, but like, I don't know if there was a single thing that I took away positively from either of the OKC games in OKC. I liked some of the things in that middle game but there's no Shea, no AJ Mitchell, and no Luka, right? So those are the 2 best players in the series, and then a really prominent bench piece for OKC. I thought there was it wasn't exactly representative of what we'd seen in a playoff series, but the Lakers, if they've had an Achilles heel this season, I'm also surprised Houston didn't lean into this more. It's been the teams with ball pressure and speed and forcing them into making quick decisions against athleticism, and those teams being able to turn them over, get them on their heels, and make them play just sort of frantic offense. OKC is one of the best teams of all time at doing that. The Lakers have been blitzed by them multiple times this season, regardless of who's been available. And it's just that matchup to me is, I think it's by far like their worst potential matchup, to say nothing of like OKC's general talent, skill, depth. Like they're obviously the favorites for a reason, but even putting that aside from a matchup perspective, I just think it's a terrible matchup for LA.
It's funny when your team wins a playoff game, you just feel like you're on top of the world.
Oh yeah,
and I think that's where
nothing bad's ever going to happen again, Anthony.
Yeah, right. Like
it's all smooth sailing.
I'm sorry. I'm being as honest as I can be.
No, I think this is why I asked the question, because I do agree with Pete's point that like LeBron's play does make me kind of look at the Lakers in a different way than, because we didn't really see the LeBron James who manipulated a basketball game to the extent that he did in game 1 over the course of this regular season, and that is, for those bench lineups that LeBron would be able to go against in this spot, especially if Austin is somehow, some way, somewhat healthy. That makes me look at them somewhat differently, but yeah. Okay,
what about the starting groups though? I mean, the starting groups is where it was over 6 minutes into it. 3 minutes. It was what, like 18-4 or something?
Yeah, that's why I was about to say, like, at the end of the day though, OKC is like, they are historically great at the specific things that the Lakers are just absolutely terrible against. And it's just a brutal matchup.
If I could make a football analogy, it's like a team with a great pass rush against a team with offensive line problems. And like
a lot of sacks.
Yes, exactly. And Jovan, your bleak outlook on the OKC tape, like from like rewatching it, it's like I would encourage anybody with any degree of optimism against OKC to like rewatch those games. Let's hope we have this conversation in a couple of weeks where it's like, oh man, it was bad, but it was just so bad.
And look, to be clear, like I think it will be something that the Lakers can address this summer and should try to address. Is like I think there needs to be how do we build this roster, because I mean that team's not going away, San Antonio's not going away, and it's a different challenge, but they also present with Castle and Fox and Harper and some of their guys. They can ball pressure you, and the Lakers struggled with that against them a couple times. Like they need to figure out how do we overcome this challenge, because those two teams, however long, like Luka's Laker and contending, like OKC and San Antonio are going to be there. So they need to fine tune the roster, I think, to better match up with those two specific teams.
And this is part of the reason why I really want us to win this series is like, even if we get beat soundly in the second round by OKC, that's as many games, 4 to 7 games of tape on, okay, what exactly do we need to do to beat this team in San Antonio? Because once you get to the top of the league, and, you know, we're in that like 4th, 5th best team in the league type of range. Once you're there, it actually becomes a matter of like specific figuring out how do we beat those teams that are above us. That like I would just love to get some good game tape and some real basketball with stakes at it. Even if Luka's a little bit hobbled, right? And hopefully Austin could come back by then. We'll see. But that would be just such a gift. But got to get through Houston. We've got a chance, but lot of work ahead.
I especially really want to beat Houston for all of the Astros nonsense. Like that's like an extra little additive to this series. And let's knock on wood. Let's take care of business here. This has been a lot of fun, as it always is. Thank you guys a ton for carving out a little bit of time during this really busy stretch. Pete, Jovan, anything that I'll start with you, Jovan, anything that you want to plug before we get you out of here?
Just Buha's block, Lakers Collective, and I'm just excited. CNN occasionally. I mean, I'm just really excited for the rest of this series and wherever things go. But would love to be previewing a Lakers Thunder series with you guys.
Heck yeah,
that'd be great. Pete, anything that you want to plug?
Offside Chat's been super fun. Hit record numbers the other night for game 1. It's really nice to watch the game in a space with other Laker fans, and it's just. There's enough people there to where it's fun. You can have conversations with folks, but it's not like it's just a totally different experience than Twitter and other places in a really good way. So join us over at offside.gg/beta. That's it.
Yeah. What I will say about that Offside Chat is that it's the lack of disingenuousness is just so nice. It's so nice. It's so refreshing to like today I was, I had sent out a tweet about the Luka not being nominated thing, and just like the responses to it have just made me say, like, can I just exist in the Offside Chat? Can I just ignore Twitter altogether? And hopefully we can eventually get it to that point. I'm Anthony Irwin of Lakers Lounge. Thank you everybody for tuning in. And until the next time you guys hear from us, have a great rest of your evenings, make somebody else's, and we will talk to you guys tomorrow right after the game.